Good morning and welcome back to Aliyah Yami. Today we're going to be learning Tzav Rishon, the first Aliyah in Parshas Tzav. Our Parsha as a whole contains 96 psukim, which is the numeric value of Tzav, the name of the Parsha itself. But our Aliyah in particular has 11 psukim running from Perek Vov, Pasuk Aleph to Pasuk Yud Aleph. Basic overview of our Aliyah. We hear now about how Aaron is now commanded, and his children are commanded, to learn the Torah of the Olah, the laws pertaining to the burnt offering sacrifice. It's burnt on the Mizbach, on the altar, all night until the morning, and we hear about the fires that are necessary, the clothes that they have to wear when doing this, and what's called Hoitzi Sadeshan, the Truma Sadeshan, taking out the ashes of the previous night every morning when they would burn after the night of burning. Then we hear about the Torah Mincha, the laws as pertaining to the Mincha, to the meal offerings. And again, we are told that Aaron and his children need to bring it to the Mizbech. They bring a kumtzoi, it's komets, it's a little piece that's held in the hand, it's burnt upon the Mizbech, and the rest is eaten by the Kohanim. We hear a reiteration of some of the laws, that it cannot be chametz, it cannot be leaven, it is kodesh kodashim, kachatas ka'asham. So a lot of laws that pertain to this. And so when we start our aliyah, just a few basic points to ponder. Number one is, why is the word that the parsha is called after such an important word? It is called tzav, command. Why is this so significant? Rashi actually points out that this relates to, he quotes the Sifra, which is the Medrash Halacha, and that is that Ein Tzav Ela Lashon Zeiruz. It is a expression of trying to create alacrity, trying to create momentum in doing this. For the reason being is, Rabbi Shimon explains why, because it needs to explain this in a place that yesh boy chesron kis, where there's a loss in money. When there's a loss in money, that's when the Kohanim need to be especially given this extra accelerated push to do it is what it is. Now, just for out of interest, if you look through the rest of Sefer Vayikra, there is only one other place in the entire book of Sefer Vayikra, all 10 parshios, where the word Tzav actually appears, and that's in Parshas Emo, where it says Tzav is b'nei Yisrael v'yichu elecho Shem and Zayis Zoch. So the only other time that this notion of tzav is now the word mitzvah, kashet tziva, though that appears, but as a directive, as a command, this is there's only appears twice. It really is stands alone. Rashi says, why? Because of chesron kis. What does that mean? Well, why here specifically? Why by the korban olah, by the burnt offering, is this something which is being mentioned? So Torah HaKodesh summarizes a few possibilities. He suggests that there's a lot of effort involved in the korbanos, a lot of pain and sacrifice that's involved in doing the korbanos. It's not easy to sacrifice an animal, to perform all the avodah and keep one's thoughts in the right direction. So Hashem is saying, just make sure you do it right. Make sure you do it right. Second possibility is, he says, because the korban olah requires burning throughout the night. After all, the korban tamid, the sacrifice in the morning, the sacrifice in the evening, their limbs were burnt all night, and because it required somebody being up all night, that's why the Kohanim are requiring an extra reminder, an extra push for this. That's the second possibility. The third possibility, he says, is that Israel are losing out on the korban because it's completely burnt and consumed by the Mizbech. Meaning to say that there's no one who's getting benefit from this particular korban. Animal costs a lot of money. It's a big investment, takes a lot of time to grow that animal. Now it's just being burnt completely on the Mizbech. There's no seeming physical beneficiaries from this sacrifice that requires a little bit more extra. And perhaps the fourth explanation, he says, is not just the Israelites are losing out, it's also the Kohanim themselves. There's no Kohen who's benefiting from this korban at all. The only thing the Kohen gets is the skin of it as well. Now the Oracham rejects all the ideas. He says these seem to be too rudimentary for the Torah to go out its way to counteract them. So rather, he suggests it refers to that at the end of the Aliyah, we know that the Mizbach is supposed to have fire, Eish Tamid Tukad al Mizbach lo Sichbeh, that there has to be this fire on the altar, which is always there. And he says and in fact, we're going to learn that there's 3 different pyres, there's 3 different fires upon the altar. So in that case, it costs a lot of money to keep that going. That's what the Tzav is, that's what the Lashon Ziruz is as well. So these are 5 possibilities raised by the Orach HaKodesh. It is worthwhile noting that in the Sifsei Chaim, Rav Chaim Friedlander, in his book on the Yomim Tovim, he at the beginning of the section on Sukkos, where in Ma'amar Aleph, he says a very beautiful possibility. Chesron Kis isn't just about the money, he says, but it's about whether a person feels part and a partner in that mitzvah as well. When you have an olah, when you have a burnt offering, and a person's not really, so to speak, one's not partnering, one doesn't feel like it's using one's abilities, one's capacities, it's really completely burnt up, it's complete sacrifice, it's a zero-sum game, 0-1, and they're giving up everything for the Mizbach. That's where it has a chesron kiss. There's no kiss, there's no pocket, there's no hold, so to speak, in this. And he makes a very fascinating observation. He quotes the Rambam, where the Rambam points out in Halacha that a non-Jew is allowed to bring a korban. Unlike perhaps other religions, which are very exclusive and intolerant to any other forms of religion, the Torah says a non-Jew is allowed to bring a korban, but the only korban they're allowed to bring is the korban olah. They're not allowed to bring a shlamim. Suggests Rav Chaim Friedlander that's precisely this point. When it comes to the non-Jewish conception of service of God, it really is a zero-sum game. It's me or him, and if I want to serve God, therefore it is him, and therefore not me. And that's why I need to sacrifice everything. The korban is an example of the celibacy. It's an example of the living on the mountaintop as a monk. It's the example of being completely disconnected to this world. That's the only type of korban that the non-Jewish world knows how to bring. But in the realm of Judaism, it's possible to bring a shlamim where you can eat the sacrifice and also serve God. That's by yesh, by kiss. That means you've got an element, there's a pocket, so to speak, to it. There's a part that I own in it. That type of what we'll call hybrid service is not something which the non-Jewish world is akin to or appreciative of, which is why it's so important. And it's specifically when it's leis b'chesron kiss, when it does not have any aspect of personal involvement, that is precisely when it is important to have zeros, this extra tzav over here as well. Now, just a very basic question, which is very important for our parasha as a whole, and that is, what is the point of this aliyah? We heard about the korban olah, we heard about the korban mincha in Parshas Vayikra. Why is it being reiterated here? It sounds like a repetition. So the Rashbam says it really is a repetition, but there's a few extra details which are added. So the question is, what are those extra details? Rashi tells us a few of them. So he says, first of all, we hear that now the organs and limbs are burnt all night long, that we did not hear in the beginning of Parshas Vayikra. Also teaches us that what invalidates an olah. So we hear about some of the aspects which invalidate an olah. And another example is that once it goes on the mizbech, it cannot come down. That refers to the nesachim. That means to say certain things which touch the mizbech or go up on the altar cannot be retracted there afterwards as well. So the idea of the Rashi and the Rashbam is there are extra laws which are being taught to us here. The Ramban adds another law which is also described is that the olah itself can only be brought during the day, but the limbs are burnt at night. So these laws we learn from the second time round. But this all being true, it still doesn't answer the question really, if you think about it. Because really, why couldn't we just copied and pasted all the details that we have in Tzav over here, which are extra, and put them in Vayikra? Or vice versa, put all the details in Vayikra here. We could put it all in one parasha. Why does the olah have to be split up into two? Says those Naim Torah, very profound insight, and this is going to be extremely helpful for reading Parashas Tzav as a whole. And that is, the audience of Parashas Vayikra was all of Israel. Vayikra Hashem Moshe, Hashem called out to Moses and to tell him to tell the rest of the nation of Israel. That's wonderful. That means to say that we, the regular proletariats, were the recipients or were the beneficiaries of the Parshas Vayikra. However, when it comes to Parshas Tzav, that is not the case. Who is the recipient? The answer is in the first two psukim of this parsha. The answer is Tzav es Aaron vesbanov lemor. This is an internal memo to the Kohanim who are about to perform the avodah. When it comes to that internal memo, there's more details. There's more specifics as to what it is that it takes for them. Yes, the regular masses need to know that korbanos work and how they work in general. But now we're getting the specific details that the Kohanim need to know about, oh, by the way, nighttime, this detail, this burning, this limb, those things, that aspect of it is more specific to those facilitating it. And that's why it is that it's done in such a way as well. Very profound idea, and it's going to help us read the rest of this Torah. Now, how many pyres were there? New question on the Mizbeach. So the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam says in Hilchos Tminim Musaf in the second parak that there were 3 ma'arachos, 3 pyres of fire on the Mizbeach every day. It's not the sort of simplistic picture we have one fire. The first one was what's called the ma'aracha gedola, the large pyre. That was where you bring the korban tamid. That's where you brought the korbanos, you poured the limbs on that fire. The second one was b'tzidak tanami meshemimeno loichim eish b'machto la'achtir katoris b'choyam. There was a smaller fire to the side, and that fire would be used to get the coals necessary for the katoris, the incense brought on the internal mizbeach. The fire would be taken from here. And shlishish, the third one, was only a very small one, and that was to be eish tamid tukad boy, which would be the constant fire. And that was not a functional fire, it was a symbolistic fire as well. Finally, one last point in our aliyah, which is a really important point, is that what is the significance of Trumas Hadeshen, of taking the ashes off the Mizbech? After all, I mean, it's important. You need to have a clean Mizbech the next day, but that's part of the avodah. Really, why is that so important? The Gemara in Yuma tells us that from the word Vehirim, that's used by both Trumas Hadeshen and the Mincha, that a commerce was taken from the Deshen and placed in the Mizbech, meaning to say you took a little bit of the actual Deshen and put it on the Mizbech, almost as if the ash itself was part of the service. Why? Why is that? Rav Hirsch makes a profound point, and he says the day begins with finishing up what yesterday started or finished with. Meaning to say, the way he puts it is today brings no new mission. It is only to carry out ever afresh the mission of yesterday too was to accomplish. And listen to this profound observation. The very last Jewish grandchild stands there before God with the same mission of life that his first ancestors bore, and every day adds to all its predecessors in the whole passing of the centuries his contribution to the solution of the task given to all the generations of the house of Israel. The Jewish today has to take its mission from the hands of its yesterday. That's how Trumas Hadeshen works. The ashes are from yesterday's karbanos. We only bring today's karbanos after we finish yesterday's karbanos. Very profound insight, helps us understand part of the beginning of Parashat Tzav. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day.